We've all heard about professors being fired and being persecuted more and more in our universities across the country because of their faith, because of their convictions. Well, we're going to talk in the second part of this program to one of our attorneys handling a case involving a professor who is not just harassed, but actually wrongfully fired. And we're going to give you some great news about how this case is moving along. But in the first half of the show, I want to talk to an expert with regards to defending homeschoolers. We at Pacific Justice Institute really take it seriously, the defense of parental rights. And we've taken on homeschooling cases ourselves. But this gentleman is a real keen expert. I want him to bring him on the show to talk about something that's taking place right now in Virginia that is an outrageous attack on the rights of parents to homeschool their kids. I'd like to welcome to the program right now Michael Smith, who is the head of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSLDA. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Brad. Good to be with you. How you doing?
I'm doing just great. As many of the audience know, we at Pacific Justice Institute really appreciate and applaud the work of HSLDA with regards to the defense of homeschoolers. In fact, we worked together on a case a number of years ago out here on the West Coast where they challenged the right of parents to be able to homeschool their kids without being a credentialed teacher. Right. And yet you've got something similar to that in Virginia, as I understand it, Loudoun County, Virginia. The public school board there is attacking the rights of parents to homeschool. Tell me more.
Well, that's interesting, Brad, because our office, HSLDA's office, the only office we have except in D.C., is in Loudoun County, Virginia, of all things. And we're in Purcellville, Virginia, which is kind of the county. Well, it's not the county seat, but it's one of the major little towns in Loudoun County. In Virginia, it's the only state I know that you can homeschool based upon a religious exemption, and you're exempted from public school attendance. You're exempted from all the requirements of public schooling. So it's been in existence since the early 70s, and it's been challenged off and on. But this year, a County Board of Supervisors, which is interesting, decided they didn't like the fact that parents were able to, in quote, hide their children from the view of other people, that they didn't have to have any contact with public school officials or social workers, and they didn't like that idea, so they wanted to propose legislation, to have a legislator in Virginia do away with the religious exemption. And
wow.
So that's how it started, which is interesting.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand there's logic here. So their attitude was, heaven forbid that any family should be exempt from government monitoring, supervision, control. I mean, that's sort of their attitude. Like, golly gee, if the government's not involved in their life in some way, there's something wrong here. And we don't care if they have religious convictions to homeschool. We want to be there. We want to be in their lives, monitoring, checking up on things. Where'd this come from?
Well, it basically, as you know, because you've dealt with parental freedoms and parental rights, it comes from, and some in the government just have a complete distrust of parents. And it goes against Parham versus JR, Supreme Court case that says parents are presumed to act in the best interest of their children. So there's actually a presumption in the law that goes against their presumption, which is parents are presumed not to act in the best interest of their homeschool children because they're not being monitored enough by the government.
Right. So it's a deep ideology that we're seeing manifest itself. And they're in Virginia, of all places. I always think of Virginia as pretty level-headed. I don't know. I used to work in Northern Virginia at one time years ago. And so that's disturbing if this can happen in Virginia. So where are we at in the process? I know HSLDA is challenging this.
Right. Well, yeah, thanks for asking and good insight on your part. Well, they had several meetings with the public, and so we were able to get our homeschoolers turned out. And we kind of ferreted out that there were really only maybe one of the Board of Supervisors that was interested in this. The other supervisors started backing down and said, I didn't understand this. I didn't understand this language. And two of the more conservatives were not even around when they made the initial vote to do this. So they started backing down. Then they had a committee hearing when they didn't allow anybody to speak, and then they talked about it, and they tried to say, this is not what we intend. We don't really intend this at all. So then they had a meeting with the legislators when they come up to Loudoun County, and it doesn't look like any legislators interested in introducing this year. But it's just kind of shocking that, as you say again, that there's a complete distrust of Loudoun County parents to homeschool their children, be responsible without the government helping them.
Now, do you see this attitude, this ideology, as something that is coming from the left, from the right, from everywhere? Where's the foundation of this ideology? These politicians, these people that are doing this, where are they in the spectrum, if you will, so we can understand what to be watching for?
Yeah, they tend to be on the left, although homeschooling should be actually a nonpartisan issue. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican or whatever you are. You should recognize that parents have these fundamental rights to direct the upbringing and education of children. I mean, that's a hallmark of one of our freedoms in America, just like free speech, free press, all of that. But I think what we're seeing is, especially on the left, is as they get more convinced that government really is the solution to most everything, then they begin to distrust people that don't want to have anything to do with the government. And so that's what I think is really happens. It kind of, you remember the book, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child by Hillary Clinton. That's the philosophy, is that parents really are not capable. As a matter of fact, most people, except the elite, of course, are really not capable of running their lives without the government helping them.
Right. And that's becoming more and more a part of the thinking of so many people in this country, that we need the government to be in our lives, to run our lives, to be dependent on the government. And what we see is when the government gets involved, things get messed up. And particularly when we're talking about families and raising your children and homeschooling. Now, there's something else that popped up in the state of Massachusetts I want to talk about as well. It's a homeschooling case matter. Yeah. I'm really concerned about this. Please tell us more.
Yeah, this is a tragic case. This is a single mom who had been homeschooling several years, and she'd been doing her paperwork. In Massachusetts is one of the more regulated states in homeschooling. Massachusetts and New York are together there. And so every year you have to turn in your paperwork, and you technically have to be approved, although there's a case that says you can start homeschooling as long as you've submitted your paperwork. But the school board would be the equivalent of the school board. It's a school committee, they call them there. In Massachusetts, has to look at your curriculum and your course of study and that sort of thing, and actually technically approve. Well, this lady submitted her paperwork several times. They lost it, but they wouldn't admit they lost it, and they actually turned her over to social services. And social services came out. They didn't believe her. She wouldn't let them in her house when they wanted to come in and look at her house and talk to her child. She wouldn't let them in. They brought the police back. They came inside, arrested her, and removed her child for a couple of weeks. And so
a couple weeks.
Couple weeks. Yep, that's the case. How do you like that case, Brad?
That's horrific. Now the child, they came back to the mother, but the child, of course, was traumatized.
Yeah. The child came back. They found out she actually had submitted the paperwork. Not a big apology, though. And so the problem is, she never should have been over paperwork. As you know, Brad, that's not a crime. Okay?
Right.
You may have a problem with it. Convene a school board, make her come there. Don't turn her into the police. Don't have her investigated for child neglect. That's not child neglect.
Right.
So that's what this is about. And this appears to be a pattern of this school district. So that's what we're going after.
Wow. That's a really important case, Michael. I know a number of years ago, I had a case that I personally took on in California where they came in and they, with SWAT team vests on, they barged into the house with an unlawful warrant, wasn't even signed by a judge. They take the kids, screaming from the mother, wonderful, loving Christian mother, homeschooled her kids faithfully, and for alleged truancy, because they thought that the mother wasn't teaching, so they go take the kids.
Right.
And I went into court, represented her, we got everything dropped, and I was all ready to counterattack with on the offense, and the mother decided, I think they learned their lesson. I just want to be left alone. I said, okay, fine. And it wasn't for years later before this issue was finally addressed in the courts in California with the rights of parents to homeschool without being a credentialed teacher. But just the fact that this is still happening is disturbing, and people I think need to realize that not all states are the same. Massachusetts, New York, what are some of the other states that are what I call higher risk states with regard to more government control? Where should people really be especially sensitive to these kinds of issues?
Well, fortunately, those would be the states where if you're going to homeschool, you're going to have to do a lot of paperwork. And
Okay.
but let me just tell you, in the time we have here, a trend that I'm seeing that I'd like to make you aware of. And
Please.
you're familiar with the Turpin case that sprung up last January down in San Bernardino County, down
Right.
in Paris, California. You're familiar with that case,
Yes.
where a very tragic case involving a family that apparently, at least this is what we're hearing, did a lot of horrible things to their children. They had a whole bunch of children, and a lot of them were grown, like 4 or 5 of them were grown, and 8 were not.
Right.
And they were chaining the kids, and they weren't getting, so they
Yeah.
they had their children taken away from them and all that. And, of course, the media went crazy. And I'll tell you what we're seeing, I think, from this case, because it got so much media attention. What we're seeing is school districts going beyond their authority and wanting parents to actually come in with their annual paperwork that they file and bring their children. And I really believe this is going back to that Turpin case, because they're beginning to think, we got to see the children. We have a responsibility to make sure they're actually not abusing or neglecting their children. And let's be certain, homeschooling and child abuse are 2 separate issues.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But they're trying to link the 2 together, because the argument from their side is because, again, parents that are homeschooling in California are not required to go before a school district or, any of that sort of thing. They're not monitored by the school district. Then there could be something wrong by way of molestation, by way of abuse, whatever. So they want to be able to see the children. And that's what that legislation was about last year that was filed, by Medina, when he wanted to have the fire marshal visit homeschools annually.
Yes.
And come in the home and make sure that everything was okay, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's what we're seeing more,
Right.
and that's troubling.
Right. So people need, no matter what state they're in, they need to be very sensitive to this, that this kind of legislation can be coming to a state near you.
Yeah.
In any part of the country. People
That's
need to be
correct.
aware of this, and it's not a minor matter. It's a major intrusion of government, and it's not justified either as a matter of the statistics. Homeschooling, children are safest statistically being homeschooled than in attending a public school, even a private school for that matter. Statistically, it's the safest form of education, and yet the government, even though they don't have their act together with public schools, with terrible stats of things happening, they feel entitled to somehow barge into families, into homes. I think we should all be concerned about this and hold our public servants, our legislators, our school board members, our congressmen accountable to the positions they're taking and whether or not they are respecting the rights of parents, and particularly the rights of parents to homeschool. Michael, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Hey, if people want to get more information about HSLDA, become a part of your team, where should they go?
Well, let's go to our website. That's the easiest way to do it, hslda.org, hslda.org. And Brad, I want to thank you for all you're doing. I know your team is working hard out there in California, and I know you're under the gun, so God bless you, brother.
Oh, God bless you too, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very grateful to PJI. They're an excellent organization, excellent team, and they really stand for justice.
I loved working with the Pacific Justice Institute because I felt like they had my same heart.
They would take our rights away in a heartbeat without organizations like Pacific Justice.
I thought it was it. I thought it was a dead end. I thought I had no other options. Until PJI stepped in and said, no, that's not the case. You do have options.
So it's really important, I think, that organizations like Pacific Justice Institute are out there to advocate for the freedom of religion, for the freedom of speech.
I'm thankful to God for using the Pacific Justice Institute to keep me out there preaching the Word of God.
And I mean, what they did in a matter of days would have taken me probably weeks. And to have an organization like that is free of charge, that we didn't have to pay anything to, that's invaluable.
And folks, if you'd like to support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis, just go to our website, pji.org, pji.org. And there you can also sign up to get our weekly legal insider. It gives you updates on what's going on so you know what to pray for. And also, I just want to let you know we have a matching gift program. So everyone who becomes a regular monthly donor or decides to give a one-time or increased level of support this month in January, it is doubled. It's matched dollar for dollar. So it's a great giving opportunity. But most importantly, I want you to know that we're here to serve you. And we do all of our work without charge all across the country through a huge team of volunteer affiliate attorneys, as well as the attorneys we have on staff. So if we can help you, if we can serve you, please let us know. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for those of you who are in the trenches with us, a part of our team, making a real impact in the kingdom. We have with us on the show a gentleman who I highly respect, Michael Peffer. You're our attorney out of our Southern California office, and you're doing great work. And there's a particular important case that I want to focus on today, Michael, that I think some people have been watching this. If they haven't, they need to, because it's a classic example of the purging on public university campus that we're seeing with regards to professors of faith. I heard recent statistic was that 1 in 29 professors that are hired have a conservative or biblical worldview. Just 1 in 29. And so we see in the hiring process, but also in the firing process, this purging. And there's one particular case dealing with a Professor Thompson that I want you to focus on today.
Yeah.
Give us an update. What happened and where are we at?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Well, this comes somewhat by way of an update. So to start with, this is a case where a gentleman, Professor Thompson, a tenured sociology professor at a junior college, he came to us, and someone else, another organization, whatever, all due respect, but they turned him down, and he came to us, and he was being harassed at that time. Basically, you have to change this, and you can't say that. And mind you, this man was a professional. He's a tenured professional, well reviewed. Students loved him. He got great. He never had a bad review, and so they started being upset with him because he was taking positions again. Not beating people up with their Bible in a sociology class. He was teaching sociology, but he had the nerve to run against the grain with respect to certain issues in our schools, and the administration took exception to that.
Now, I understand the issue was dealing with same-sex marriage, and it was at the time pending before the United States Supreme Court. So it was very timely, very topical, very applicable to the subject matter, sociology.
That's right.
And he was going out of his way to make sure that both arguments were presented. Critical thinking was encouraged.
That's right.
He wasn't preaching any sermons.
Nope.
So why the problem? Universities are supposed to be the open marketplace of ideas.
That's right.
Right, where they're supposed to encourage critical thinking, encourage discussion among students regarding these kinds of issues. And yet the university had a different position, I understand, in order to be taking this radical stance against him. What was their position?
Their position was that we don't want to hurt students' feelings, and the way he was saying things was not really nice and really vague stuff.
Yeah. Did he use any profanity? Did he ever call out any students and point fingers at them or anything like that?
No, it was very interesting on that. And I'll just be very brief, but what's very interesting is that they said that he castigated a student. Well, we found a tape of that class, a cassette, a recording.
Good job.
And it turned out, no, he did not castigate that student at all. So this was trumped up things that were happening,
right? And
they began to warn him, you can't do this, and we'll call him in here to the dean's office, and really their own board policies call for academic freedom, which is a doctrine long-standing in America,
right?
That professors need to be able to, if you will, provoke their students to think critically.
Right.
And that was violated here.
Yeah, so he never harassed any students. The record shows that they were making it up.
That's right.
They were providing false information, lying. We've seen that in Congress with judicial court appointments and things, and yet we see it at local levels, and it seems to be the mindset that maybe I'm just being a little paranoid here, but it seems like the mindset I'm seeing implemented at all levels of government is it's okay to lie.
Yeah.
It's okay to bear false witness if it furthers your agenda and furthers your point and furthers the people in power that you want. We see it at a national level. We see it at a local level.
That's right.
And it's disturbing. And that's why what we're doing, I think, is so important, Michael, because unless organizations like Pacific Justice Institute take them to the mat and say, no, this is not what the evidence is. This is not the information. You did a dynamite job researching this, put in countless hours to make sure that the evidence and the truth came to the surface. And I think that played a key role in the outcome. Now, what was the outcome?
Yeah, the outcome is we went to an arbitration, and this was not a small deal. This was like a mini trial, and there was
2
witnesses. We went on for over a period of 2 weeks. We went for dozens of hours, probably 40 or 50 hours, and it was an interesting case, and we came out that they had by that time terminated this gentleman for his so-called abuse, and the arbitrator overruled the school and said, nope, you can't, this is not worthy of termination, and the school lost the arbitration.
Right. So playing on their turf with an arbitrator, we won, the professor won.
Yes.
So is it all over?
Unfortunately, it's not over, because remember, this kind of nonsense that we're seeing in the schools is well entrenched, and they're not going to just let this go. So they have filed, I don't want to get into legal mumbo jumbo, but the bottom line is they filed an appeal. We'll just call it an appeal.
Right.
And now we're going to go back to court, this time to the Superior Court. Before we were in private mediation. And so PJI, like we have done in the past with this arbitration, we're stepping up to the plate. We're going to handle this, and we're going to get justice for Professor Thompson. He's a good man, and he enjoys his job and takes it seriously, and we want to take our job really seriously, too, on his behalf.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand a couple things. One is the fact that when we take on a case, we don't just take it at the first level and say, oh, okay, well, that's all we're going to do. May God bless you, be warm, be filled. No, we see it through to the very end.
That's right.
And also, I want people to understand, if he had to take out money out of his pocket to pay for an attorney, we do all our work without charge.
That's right.
Could he have reasonably afforded to have paid for all the hours that was necessary for him to be represented to get his job back?
No, it's a lot of hours, and we've spent a lot of hours. I've been on Mr. Thompson's case, and a pleasure to be there for almost maybe a little over 2 years. So we've been in the trenches for a long time, and frankly, we don't know when the end is, but PJI is going to be there at the end, and we're doing this for him, and again, free of charge, absolutely.
Yeah, and I want people out there to realize if you're watching this program or listening to it on the radio. Recognize the fact that these people that we represent, they're not always, like, say, high-profile, big-game cases. I know other organizations, they focus on cherry-picking the big-game cases. We work hard to make sure, folks, that everyone gets the help that they need, that no one is left on the side of the road by the Pacific Justice Institute. And this professor is a classic example. And if we let just one pitch make it past the plate, then it's going to send waves encouraging this kind of tyranny across the country even more. And our goal is basically to make sure everyone gets help no matter where they are in the country. Michael, if someone calls you from Connecticut or Miami or Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they say, gosh, I'm in the same situation. I'm a professor. I'm a teacher. I'm being persecuted because of my faith, my convictions, because of my stance on these issues. Should they contact us, or should they be encouraged to contact us?
Absolutely. We not only are we expanding our offices so that we can help people in different locales, but we work to find people to help us when we have to deal with a state where our lawyers are not admitted. And so I would say, yes, absolutely. Give us a call. We've helped some pretty far-reaching people. You just represented a couple of people in Texas, and we're here to try to get help for everybody, and by God's grace, we've done pretty well at that, I think.
Yeah, well, you specifically in this case have done an excellent job, Michael. I know the client, Professor Thompson, is very appreciative of it, and I know I want people out there to be praying for you as this case moves forward. We never forget Pacific Justice. At the end of the day, we're asking for God's grace in these cases.
That's right.
Our cases are often in places where it's dark. It's very oppressive. It's not like a little town in Texas where most of our cases are. We're talking about places where we're outnumbered oftentimes.
Right.
Sometimes outnumbered in the courts with the judges. But in the end of the day, we do our work. We bring truth to the surface, and it's also people praying for us that really makes a difference. And folks, if you want to pray for us, one of the great ways to pray for us is to keep up with what we're doing so you know what to pray for.
That's right.
And I encourage you to go to our website. It's pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. It's real simple, pji.org. And there you can sign up to get our press releases, our case updates, pray for us. And then also, if you'd like to support our work, once again, we have a matching gift program. It carries through to the end of January, and everything you decide to give to us to support our work as a new donation or increased support or as a new monthly donor is matched dollar for dollar. In fact, the monthly supporters, your support is matched dollar for dollar, not just for the first month, but for the next 12 months. So it's a great opportunity to become a part of our team, both financially as well as prayerfully. I encourage you strongly to go to our website, pji.org, and there's also lots of other free resources there available to help you protect your family, your church, your faith, and your freedoms. So, Michael, thank you again for the work that you're doing. Keep up the good work.
My pleasure, Brad.
So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.